Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, my name is Tanelia. I do lifestyle, beauty, fashion coming soon, and probably faith coming soon. I do all that content, or at least trying to do all that content for this channel. If you could tell by the title in today's video, you know I'm going to be talking about my testimony and how I came to Christ. I hope this video helps you, and I'm gonna try my best to explain it. I literally have been trying to record this video for a straight hour, but every single time I go to record, I ramble on. So I'm just gonna try to get to the point. I'm gonna try my best to timestamp everything so it doesn't get out of order and looks all sloppy and weird, but bear with me. This is my very first testimony, and I kind of still feel like I'm living mine out, but I do hope this helps someone or encourage someone, or I don't know. I hope you like the video. Whatever this video can do for you, I'm glad that it did something for you. God has been putting this video on my heart for a couple months, and a couple months ago I had the gall to tell him no because I didn't want to do it, and I felt like I was still living out my testimony, but also I didn't want my channel to be faith-based. But you know, as time went by, I was just like, girl, get it together. You need to put this video out, and it's not about you. So I'm gonna try my best to explain this. I am sorry if I ramble on and make no sense. I'm going to try my best to stay on topic. It was a dark and stormy night, and I was, okay, I'm kidding. I was born in New York in 2000. I was raised here up until like 4 years old, and then I moved to South Carolina, and then I was living down there for like 11 years. So throughout these 11 years, I'm gonna pinpoint three things, or a couple things that are important for my testimony. One, my father did come with us when we moved down there, but him and my mother split up, so he left and came back to New York. Two, I moved around quite a lot, schools and neighborhoods, so you can imagine how my relationship with making friends kind of crumbled. Three, I have two younger brothers and an older brother. Older brother, he's kind of gonna be scarce throughout my testimony because he wasn't really like around. I can't really remember him being around. He was just out doing his own thing. So this testimony is probably gonna just really include my mom, my stepfather, and my two younger brothers. So we're gonna start in 2014 when my mom had to quit her job and my stepfather had to quit his job. His job moved to Florida. My mom's job was too strenuous for her, so she ended up quitting. And you know, once you don't have jobs, you don't have money. And when you don't have money, bills don't get paid. So we had to literally sell everything in our house, throw stuff away, pack up all our stuff, put it, the stuff that we had left obviously, put it in the car that we had, that we were blessed to still have, and literally go to New York. My mom was talking to her friends about a shelter system that we can get into around this time, so that's what we did. We did like this long 2-day shelter family thingy process. It was absolute torture, and boom, we were in our first shelter, like I guess like 2 weeks before school starts in New York. So school starts in like September, whereas like in the South it'd be like August or something. So you know, it was just me, my mom, and my younger brother. My youngest brother and his father, they ended up going to Connecticut to my stepfather's family, so we were like separated for a little bit, and we were there for like a good month. I hated it, of course. New state, new environment. I'm starting school soon. I'm gonna be a freshman in high school. You know, the nerves were nerving, and I couldn't stand it. But we were there for a month. It was fine. It seemed like it was smooth sailing until we ended up getting kicked out. And before y'all jump to conclusions, no, we didn't start any issues. My mom just wanted to get my stepfather to live with us to help her out because that 1 month was freaking hard on us, like literally. But for some reason, you can't add people in the household. You have to like literally restart the shelter system over again, and my mom was like, I'm not doing that. So she called up a friend, and her friend told her about a shelter that's like open and would take us in immediately. So that's where we went. We hopped in the car, we packed up our, oh my gosh, we packed up all our stuff in one night. We were loading trash bags, we packed up all our stuff, and we left that same night that we got kicked out. We went to that shelter, and once we got in, they had to like, you know, we went through like airport customs basically, and we were just going through the motions. And then we finally get a room, but it's not just any room, y'all. It's not like, oh, there's a room in a room. No, it was one big room that we all had to share, and then to use the bathroom or to like shower, we had to go out the hallway and go into like these bathrooms. I think the shelter was an old college, so it was kind of like dorming a little bit. You can imagine how I felt as a 14-year-old girl going through all this. Child, I was angry, embarrassed. I was sad. I was just going through a lot. and then doing all that moving and then not having your father present in your life. Like, of course we would have phone calls, and I used to like visit him in the summer when I was younger, but once that all stopped, it was just like it was left to phone calls, and he wasn't physically there until, you know, obviously I moved back up to the city, and that's when he became more physically present in my life. But it was just difficult because I was mad at him for never visiting me down there. Mind you, I was down there for 11 years. Not bashing my father. I love my father. But at the time, I was so angry at him for that. We were just going through it. One big room. There was rodents. We were getting fed 14-day-old food. My whole family lost weight. Like, it was just a lot. So we had to eat out a lot when we had the money. And it was just very interesting, to say the least. Like, what an interesting time to really go through all that. Yep, I started high school. It took me a while to make some friends. I had great friends at the time. When I did make them, that was basically my 9th grade year, because I think in 2015 we got moved to another shelter because the shelter that we were living in, that one big room, someone ended up getting unalived in front of the building. And so the building, I guess the shelter people was like, oh, it's too dangerous, we gotta move the families out. So that's what they did. They moved us out, and then we ended up going to another shelter. Now in that shelter, it was better. Like, we had a little bit more freedom, we had a little bit more leeway to do certain things. Now we were all like living with each other. We had rooms, thank God, but I was still sharing a room with my brother, and my parents, they were in their own room. And I think in that shelter, I think I had my first panic attack or anxiety attack for the first time, and that's when I knew, like, okay, something's wrong. And as time went by, I developed depression and anxiety. I started to like self-harm, and you know, I was just going through so much, and I became insecure, shy, introverted, you name it. I used to be like this. Now I was shutting my mom out. I didn't know how to tell her any of these things because I just felt like she wouldn't get it. And there were times where I would open up to my mom about certain things, and like her response was just not it for me. And I was just like, I knew she wouldn't get it. I knew she wouldn't understand. So I was just shutting myself off. And there was this one point where my mom wanted me to open up to her about certain things. And when I did, I actually couldn't, and I was just like, I don't want to. You don't deserve it. I was mad at my mom for moving us here and putting us through all these things without thinking how hard it was for her. But you know, you're a teenager, big head, think you know everything, blah blah. Now I'm gonna fast forward to 2015, where I really started to get depressed and really started to go through emotions. I'm looking down, I have like notes here so I don't go off track. So in 2015, like I said, my mental health got bad, started self-harming. I had to do counseling in school because I knew something was wrong and I wanted somebody to talk to, so I just decided to do that. It helped to an extent because I was still self-harming, so it was like I had to hide that because of, you know, if you're like trying to harm yourself, and at school they're gonna like call the cops, the ambulance, and da-da-da. And it happened to a friend of mine as well, so it literally scared me not to open up to them. So I just had to tell them like surface level things. So on top of everything that I was going through at home, I had to suppress telling people that actually wanted to help me. Couldn't tell them anything. They wanted to help me, but I couldn't open up. I just couldn't. I was too scared. And that's how my sophomore year went. My sophomore year could have been better, but there it is. Yeah, so now we're gonna fast forward to 2016. 2016, I became very insecure. I think this was around the time where like now I was taking an interest to boys, and boys were not taking an interest to me. I was getting rejected. Boys weren't even looking my way. They were looking at my friends, but they were never looking at me. I kid you not. And so obviously that started to like make me feel like I was ugly. I started to develop, I guess you say, body dysmorphia. I always thought I was fat, and like I remember coming across a picture of myself like years ago, and I was like, I was fat? Like, girl, when I tell you I was so small, like fat where? Anyway, the mommy and daddy issues got worse. I was like staring at my mom, started to become angry at my dad a little bit because I just felt like he wasn't putting in the effort into making the relationship between us grow. I felt like I was taking on the role of, oh, let me just suck up to my dad. Like, let me, you know what I mean? I felt like, well, you're the parent. Why am I begging to have a relationship with my parent? Like, it was just kind of aggravating. And then having a messed up relationship with your dad, y'all don't understand how difficult that is to break and get out of and to grow from. That took a lot from my mental health. It just made me feel way more insecure. I'm like, well, dang, if my own father doesn't even want to spend time with me or be around me, you know, obviously I'm thinking like, oh, let me just go find another guy. Let's just say my love life sucked. Nothing worked out for me. Thank God it didn't, because how embarrassing would that be? That was my 2016. I had friends around this time, and you know, I would tell my friends these things, but like, you know, it still wasn't the same. It still wasn't doing enough for me. I ended up meeting one of my very, 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 very dearest, closest, bestest friends in the whole wide world. Tay, if you're watching this, shout out to you. because you have always been there for me. She actually spoke to me first about Christ because she's been Christian her whole life, and you know, I wasn't really listening. I was listening, but I was like, whatever, you know, I'm going through all these things. Christ is not gonna help me. At the time, I knew God was real. I knew Jesus was real. Well, I don't know if I knew Jesus was real, but I knew God was real because I grew up in the church a bit, and you know, I did pick up on some things. I knew God was real, but I didn't know the power or the extent, or I didn't know his love for me. I didn't know the power he held. I didn't know those deep things. I just knew surface level things like, oh, you pray, just pray. That's all I heard in my life. Pray it away, pray this, pray that, praise God, praise Jesus, love the Holy Spirit. Just surface level stuff. No one ever got deep with me, especially in my teenage years when I probably needed it the most. No one ever got deep with me about God or anything like that. So I was just like, oh, I know God is real, but that's it. I wasn't Christian, so I was like, oh, God is real. Yeah. If you believe in God, yeah. I couldn't name a scripture. I couldn't name a book in the Bible. I could probably tell you Genesis, and that's it. That's literally all I knew. But you know, having Tay as my friend, she taught me like a lot, especially well into my adult years. Fast forward to 2017. Kind of a blur. I don't really remember my junior year like that. I really don't remember it. Like, it's kind of a blur. Like I said, I just going through the motions. Still depressed. Surprise, whoop-de-doo, surprise there. Mom and daddy issues still very apparent. I think they started in 2017. I don't know. Like I said, I'm getting everything mixed up because it just all seems like a big blob, big blur, because everything just seems like it was happening all at once, like every day. I think I started to live with my dad in 2017 around this time because I was so sick of living in the shelter life. Like, I was so sick of not being able to go out past curfew. I was so sick of not having company. I was getting more depressed because I just felt like I was around my mom and my family who didn't understand me, who didn't get me. I was still self-harming, y'all. I was still crying at night, every night. I was still super depressed. With trigger warning, this is where my suicidal thoughts started. Like, I was just like, I don't want to be here. I'm so sick of it. I hate everything. Everything hurts. No one understands. It was just bad. Like, it was just really bad. So I went to go live with my father thinking that was gonna help. It did not. I didn't have a room. Still, mind you, all this time I did not have a bedroom. I was sharing a room at one point. We were all sharing a room together at one point. I moved to my dad's house. I was sleeping in the living room. Like, it was just, he lived in a studio at the time, so he didn't have kids at the time. So you know what I mean? He was living alone. I mean, well, it was just all overall bad. I don't know how worse it can get, but the pressure was getting worse though. Okay, if you will. And this is when it gets a little poo, you know. My dad ended up getting a girlfriend, and you know, I don't know how I felt towards her. I think I was just like, oh, okay, like, cool, you had a girlfriend, whoop-de-doo, you know. Like, I didn't really like think it was anything. But like, my dad, we even talked about this before, like, I feel like he introduced her the wrong way. I felt like he just dropped her in my life while I was going through a lot of these things. And mind you, I couldn't open up to my dad either, so he didn't know that I was going through all this stuff mentally. He didn't know I was self-harming. He didn't know I had depression. He didn't know I had anxiety. He didn't know any of these things. So he just moved in a girl, as it has seemed to me, and I just felt like, you have, like, I feel like at the time my dad didn't really know me. Looking back on my past life, I just kind of feel bad for her, and I really want to give her a hug. But it was just kind of like, you didn't even introduce us properly. Like, you just dropped her here. Like, what is she doing here? I wasn't mad that he had a girlfriend. I was just mad that I just kind of felt like I wasn't enough at the time, and he wasn't taking time out to get to know me. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt like everybody wanted something other than me. You know what I mean? Like, everybody just cared about something other than me. No one really cared about me. I started to feel unwanted and just unloved. Not by just my dad, but my mom too. Like, I was always feeling good with my mom, and then having to move with my father, I was just like, oh great, another person to make me feel like I just don't need to be here. And that's how I felt for like a very long time. I felt like that for years. And then, like, having all this happen, it just happened even more. And then one day I opened up to my mom about it. Me and his girlfriend talk about it. I mean, we talked about it before, but I think one day, like, she had like used something of mine, and then I told my mom about it, and I was just like, I don't like this. Like, why does she do, you know, little teenager things. I was like 17 at the time, and I was just like, like, he's not listening to me, and he's trying to force her on me. And you know, I felt like he was kind of like trying to get us to like be cool with each other. And I'm like, I don't hate the girl. Like, I'm just not used to a stranger as what it felt like being around me, you know what I mean? And I just felt like he was forcing it. And I told her, I was opening up to my mom about it, and I could barely remember what happened, but I remember my mom coming over to my dad's house to talk to the girlfriend. And child, when I say you, the dumpster caught on fire. That whole situation was a dumpster fire. So my dad's girlfriend called him and told him everything. Well, I think he was at work or something. I can't really remember. And like my mom, she didn't come over there like, you know, being disrespectful or being rude. She was just trying to figure out why me and the girlfriend were having issues. And so, you know, being that I was still angry at my mom, I was just like, if I have to turn to my mom and tell her about this, like, you're really not listening, because I don't tell my mom anything. That's how I felt to my dad. I'm like, if I really gotta call mom, like, you're really not listening. That's crazy. My dad did not hear us out when he came in that day. He was just like, oh, it was like a lot of arguments. It wasn't like bad arguments, but it was just like, how the F you gonna come up and in here? Like, I get it, because like, why is his baby mother in his apartment yelling at his girlfriend? Like, you know what I mean? Like, she wasn't even yelling at her. They were just literally having a conversation. My mom still to this day, she has like no ill blood towards her. It was just how I felt, and I felt like I wasn't being heard. So my mom said, well, you know, Mama Bear, like, if my daughter isn't being heard, I need to stand up for her and talk this thing out with this girl, or, you know, whatever's going on. I want to get to the bottom of everything and why all this stuff is happening. While all this is happening, I'm just watching it unfold. I start to feel bad. I was like, dang, maybe I shouldn't have opened up. I was scared, like, this whole time. I didn't know what to do. I said, the one time I do open up, it just gets worse. It gets worse. And so my dad ended up kicking me out. And I think that was the first time I felt truly unloved by my father, because he didn't even let me explain at the time. And it was really hard, because I felt like I could tell my dad more stuff than I could tell my mom, and the fact that this time he didn't want to hear me out, it kind of like broke my heart, actually. Like, it was just very painful for me. And I think that's when I really started to dislike my dad at the time. And I was just like, I can't believe he did something like that. I'm not crying because I still feel like the same way. I'm only like, or not, I'm not really crying, but I'm not like tearing up because I'm still mad at him or anything like that. I'm just tearing up because having to look back on your past self, it's a little difficult. Oh, sorry. Whew. Looking back on your past self, I just want to hug her, you know, and tell her like, oh girl, it gets so much better, so much better. I'm sorry, I do not mean to tear up in this video. These are like a lot of the personal things that I don't really talk about in life, but here we are. So, you know, this was, I'm sorry for not giving the timestamp. This was around 2017, 2018. So obviously when I got kicked out, I had to move back with my mom, and I hated it so much because I was just like, oh my gosh, I literally left this lady because she didn't understand, she didn't get me, and then I have to come back to this, you know what I mean? I just felt like I was just being dumped on people who didn't love me or didn't want me around, like, or just felt like I was just taking up space, because by then my mom had already moved into an apartment and there was no room for me, so I was in the living room once again. So I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I'm just being dumped around. No one loves me, no one gives a flying fat rat's crap about me. Like, I was just like, okay, this is just freaking perfect. Around this time my anxiety got worse and the panic attacks started to happen. I just remember crying a lot at night, and then I started to feel like this weird sensation in my arms and in my chest. My chest would hurt, my arms would tingle, and you know, being the dumb teenager I am, what are the symptoms of a heart attack? I looked that up, thought I was having a heart attack. Luckily we lived legit across the street from a hospital, so I was in and out of that hospital. Anytime I had an anxiety attack, anytime I had a panic attack, I was in and out of the hospital thinking that I was gonna die. It was so bad. I was so scared to fall asleep. Like, I was so scared. I would literally stay up at night. This was around, let me give you a timestamp, sorry. This is around 2019. So I graduated high school, whatever. Me and my dad are still on the rocks a little bit. You know, mom are still on the rocks a bit, you know. But yeah, 2019, this is where all the panic attacks and the anxiety started to get really bad. I would literally stay up the whole night until like 9 a.m. until like the sun came out, because I was, in my head, I thought like, okay, since the sun is out, my parents are gonna get up, and if I die, they're gonna see my body here, and they're gonna, like, you know, they're gonna know. Because like I said, I felt like no one cared about me. I felt like if I really passed away, no one would know. So I would have my little brother watch me sleep sometimes. I would spend the night in hospital, and I'm talking like sometimes I would get up out my bed at 3 a.m., walk across the street, sit into the hospital room, get my vitals checked, go through it like every other week, or every other day, every other week. It was clockwork. I think the hospital started to know who I was. I was just be in and out of the hospital. I used to just be so scared I was having a heart attack and that I was gonna die. Mind you, in 2019 I started to gain a little bit of weight, so like I developed a little bit of sleep apnea too, so I felt like I couldn't breathe when I was sleeping, and it was just scary, so freaking scary. And I was just like, I'm a crappy sister for having my brother literally sit next to me and make sure I don't die. Because like, what if I actually did? You know how traumatizing that is? But I had a fear of sleep. I had a fear of death. It was just fear, anxiety, OCD developed, depression. And so I got counseling, and it helped me a lot more. But then like, that also stopped working for me. I think around this time, I don't think I was self-harming. I think I had stopped around 2018, 2019. I think I stopped around those 3 years. But I was still having like the worst attacks I've ever had in my life. Like, it was just really bad. Like, I felt like something was out to get me. I was just genuinely scared. And thinking about how scared I was, I couldn't tell my mom, I couldn't tell my stepfather, I couldn't tell my dad. They just didn't get it. So I was literally just trapped in this cycle of fear every single day. It was suffocating. Literally the only people that knew how scared I was my younger brother and the hospital. No one else knew how scared I was. I was so terrified of dying. I think that's like the most scared I've ever been in my life. My camera's gonna die, so I'm gonna try to like speed this up a bit. Fast forward to, well, we're still in 2019 basically. I ended up going to college, dropped out after like a semester, barely, not even semester. I don't even think I finished a semester. I stopped going to therapy, so this is around like 2019, 2020-ish. I stopped going to therapy because the lady introduced a rock to me. I think it was a crystal, and I was just like, yeah, this isn't gonna work, sweetie. I thought the rock was working. It wasn't. I was growing. I think it wasn't until one day, 2019, I forgot the day. It was one of my old friend's birthday, and I got super drunk with my friend. At the end of the night, I had to get us home, but I didn't know where he lived at the time, so I had to drop him off at the hospital that I would frequent. And I went home, and I think that was the last time I like underage drank for once. And after that, I was like, there's something that got to be out there for me. There's something that has to work. There's something that I need to do. Like, I need something to help me. And then I think around my birthday in 2020, I gave my life to Christ. I'm sorry if I'm speeding this up. My camera's literally like blinking at me saying like, girl, hurry up. So I'm trying to like get this out. But the anxiety attacks, the panic attacks, the depression, OCD, all that stuff didn't stop. I mean, like, it gradually stopped, but it took some time. There were some times where I would cry, and the only thing that would help me would be me laying on my side, telling myself, Jesus is here, you're safe, you're fine. I had to repeat that to myself for hours on end just to get myself to sleep. And then the anxiety stopped. Instead of going every other day, it was like twice a week or once a week. Then it was like once a month. And then fast forward to 2021 and 2022, 2023, I was just healing the whole time. 2022, I definitely healed. That was a year of healing for me. I was healing from a lot of things. I had to forgive my parents. I had to forgive myself. I had to like learn how to love myself. I had to learn how to love Jesus. I had to deep dive into the Bible. I was just doing a lot of healing. And then fast forward to 2024, me and Christ were going strong. I mean, of course I have my faults where I do fall back into sin a few times, and I do kick myself while I'm down sometimes, or the enemy likes to kick me down when I'm down sometimes, kick me while I'm down sometimes. But I don't have anxiety anymore. I don't have depression anymore. I mean, my OCD that's not girly, that's hard to shake, but I've never had a panic attack or anxiety attack based on that kind of fear or that kind of mindset that I was in. If I do have one, it's because I'm like nervous or something, but like never had a panic attack ever again. And haven't been to the hospital in like, for those specific reason, in like 4 years. My camera died, so I'm gonna try to wrap this up as quick as I can from the little bit of juice that I'm stealing from it. But like I was saying, haven't been in the hospital in like 4 years for any anxiety related issue or panic attack induced issues. So I really hope this testimony helped someone feel a little bit more vulnerable enough to go talk to God and develop a relationship with God about, you know, the things that you're going through. But, you know, I also hope that this inspired you. Maybe you have to share your testimony, maybe you have to talk about your testimony, whatever you have to do. I just hope that I encouraged you some sort of way, like not by my will but by the Lord of himself. So yeah, I guess the only update is present day. The present day is me and my mom's relationship has gotten so much better. It's not something that's going to be, you know, fixed overnight, but I can now talk to my mom about literally anything. We've just gotten closer. Same with my father. Everything is just a lot, so much better. I'm not angry at them anymore, so that's great. Like I said, I hope this testimony really just stirs something in your heart to just run to God and talk to him about these things. And if shout out to Tay once more. If it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't know who Jesus is. Probably wouldn't give him a chance. And all this time I used to think that, oh, I found God didn't find me. No, he definitely found me. He meets you where you are. And I hope this is your push to go to him and have a relationship with him. And I promise you, you won't regret it. If you regret it, you won't. Let's just say that. You won't. That's all for today's video. Thank you guys for watching and tuning into a very, very vulnerable part of my life that I nearly spent an hour trying to get on camera. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for watching this video. If you have a testimony you want to share in the comments, please comment. I really like to read those. I like to watch testimony videos, and maybe in the future I'll give an update because a different YouTuber inspired me to think about giving an update in the future. So without further ado, I will let you guys go. I hope you guys have a great day, night, evening, noon, whatever it's called, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. What time is it, y'all? It's 11:44. This makeup is coming off.